Understanding Boost Book. The world abounds with documentation formats. Everything from .docx files produced by Word to the seemingly ubiquitous .pdf file. Of all the documentation formats, the most universal and compatible is the lowly .txt file. However, .txt files lack formatting, which means they limit you solely to words, which may not be enough to describe your documentation. Because you can choose from so many different file formats and formatting code can prove especially difficult, the Boost library relies on a special document format called Boost Book. Remember, documentation seems to be the bane of developers everywhere. No one seems to want to write the documentation, and the attempts at documentation often leave readers with more questions than answers. Boost Book won't make you a good writer. While it does help you produce highly formatted documentation with a standardized format, it can't overcome deficiencies in writing skill. When creating documentation for your project, the best writer in your group is still the unsurpassed choice for documentation tasks. If you have installed the Boost library using the instructions in the Obtaining and Installing Boost for Code blocks section of this chapter, you already have access to Boost Book. However, as with some other Boost utilities, you need to know a bit about Python to use this feature. In addition, you need an Apache server set up and must also download a number of other utilities. In short, even though Boost Book is accessible from a Boost library perspective, you still need to do some work to make this feature useful. The instructions at http www.boost.org /doc/libs/1_55_0 /doc/doc/html/boost book /getting/start.html describe the additional steps you need to perform. Hello, your local silly guy. Thanks for saying hi. Hi, Ezekiel Rodriguez. Thanks for saying hi. Okay. Boost Book relies on XML to hold the content you want to place in the document. The use of XML is the reason you must install the DocBook Extensible Style Language, XSL. http ://docbook.sourceforge.net/ and docbook document type definition td http ://www.oasis-open.org/docbook/xml/4.5/support. You can see the XML used for Boost Book at http ://www.boost.org/doc/libs/1_doc/html/ Boost Book documenting.html. Check the main Boost Book page at http://www.boost.org/doc/libs/1 underscore 55 underscore 0 /doc /html boostbook.html for additional information. If you perform the steps in the Creating the Boost Tools section of the chapter, you already have access to all the functionality needed to use BoostBook. The files you require appear in the code blocks /boost underscore 1 underscore 55 underscore 0 / dist / share / boostbook directory of your system. These files help you perform the card formatting. Tip: even if you choose not to use BoostBook for your project, you do need to create a common documentation format. Using BoostBook may prove complicated for the Windows developer. It seems that the originators meant this documentation format more for Unix and Linux developers. However, it's still a useful documentation format, and you should consider it. If you find BoostBook lacking, you need to create a custom format or suffer the consequences of a poorly documented application. Using QuickBook. QuickBook is an add-on for BoostBook. The utility started as someone's weekend project. Originally, QuickBook outputted simple HTML documents. However, now it outputs XML in BoostBook format so that you can quickly generate documentation that links with the rest of the documentation for your project, as described by the author at http://www.boost.org/libs/1_1 QuickBook is a wiki style documentation tool. It's important to note that some people simply call it a wiki http://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/wiki with the capital W, or a wiki, or even wiki-wiki. All the terms mean the same thing. Before you use QuickBook, you generate a documentation file. You can see an example of such a file at http://www.boost.org/doc/libs/1_55_0/tools/QuickBook.doc/QBK. For complete syntax summary for QuickBook, look at http://www.boost.org/doc/1_55_0/HTML/QuickBook/syntax.html. At this point, you're probably wondering why you should use QuickBook at all, since you have to generate a document file for it anyway. Here are the reasons why many developers use QuickBook instead of relying on BoostBook directly. The QuickBook syntax is easier to read and use than writing XML. You can use QuickBook to generate non-Boost documentation. It's relatively easy to convert other documentation formats into QuickBook syntax. QuickBook is a command line utility. You find it in the /code blocks /boost _1_55_0 /dist /bin directory after generating the Boost tools. See the Creating the Boost tools section of this chapter for details. Here are the command line switches you can access when working with QuickBook. Help displays a help message showing all the command line switches, as well as the command line syntax. Version displays version information about QuickBook. No pretty print. disables XML printing and uses plain text instead. Indent arg defines the number of spaces to use for indents, as specified by arg. Line width arg defines the number of characters in a single line. Input file arg specifies the name of the input file. Output file arg specifies the name of the output file. Debug places QuickBook in debug mode. Useful only for developers who want to tinker with the executable. MS errors specifies that QuickBook should use the Microsoft Visual Studio style of errors and warnings in the output message format. This option can make QuickBook easier for Microsoft Visual Studio developers to use and understand. Hamza Masker says hola. Hamza Masker also says ¿Cómo estás? Hola, Hamza. Yo estoy muy bien, gracias. ¿Y tú? Using BCP. The BCP Boost Copy utility helps you make Boosts more manageable. You can use it to copy one or more Boost modules to another location so that you can use a subset within an application, list all the elements within a module, create an HTML report about module content that includes license information, files without licensing information, files without copyright information, dependency information for individual files. Hamza Mascar says, ¿De dónde eres? Yo estoy en California. Theoretically, you can also use BCP to scan your application for a listing of elements needed to run the application. The output report includes all the information in a standard BCP report for a Boost module. You use one of 4 command line sentences to work with BCP as shown here. Oh, tú eres en Salvador. Yo estoy en California, estoy en Estados Unidos. BCP options module list output path, BCP list options module list, BCP list short options module list, BCP report options module list HTML file. Each of these command line syntaxes performs a different task: copy, listing, short listing, and reporting. These command lines can accept a number of options as described in the fine list. Boost equals path defines the path to the Boost library. Scan treats the modules as a non-Boost file for the purpose of scanning file dependencies. You always use this option with your own applications. CVS copies only files under concurrent version system. CVS version control. Unix lines uses Unix style line endings for the output. You won't ever use this command line switch on a Windows system, but may need it on Unix, Linux, and Macintosh systems. Using BCP is relatively straightforward. For example, if you want a listing of files for the regex library, change directories to /codebox /boost_1_55_0, and then use the file command line BCP --list regex greater than sign out.txt. The BCP utility looks in the /. Code blocks /boost_1_55_0 directory for Boost. In this case, the output appears in out.txt. You should always use file redirection because the output is too large to read at the command prompt. Let's say you want a report about the regex module instead of a simple listing. In this case, you use the following command line. BCP --list regex. Never mind. BCP dash dash report regex my report.html. Creating a report could take a while. Eventually, you can see an HTML report like the one shown in figure 4-8. You can discover more about BCP at http colon // www.boost.org/doc/1_55_0/btp/doc/html/index.html. So that's what it looks like. The caption says figure 4-8, the BCP utility can output some nice looking reports about Boost modules. Okay, and then using Wave. Okay. The Wave utility is a preprocessor for the Boost library. Using a preprocessor can significantly speed the compilation process because a preprocessor compiles the library portion of the application. After you compile it the first time, you need not compile the library again. Theoretically, you can use Wave with any C++ compiler. However, you probably won't need it with compilers such as Code, Blocks, and Microsoft Visual Studio because these products include their own preprocessor. You can find more information about the Wave utility at http://www.boost.org/doc/libs/1_55_0/wave/libs/wave_driver.html. There is more to the Wave utility that meets the eye, however. The Wave utility relies on the Wave library. The library ships as part of Boost, and you can use it in your applications as you do any other library. The website at http://www.boost.org/doc/libs/1_55_0/libs/wave/index.html tells you more about the Wave library. Building your first Boost application using Daytime. Enough information about licensing content utilities. It's time to use the Boost library for something interesting. This section shows a simple date-time example that you can't easily build without using Boost. You also discover some interesting setup requirements that are good to know when you work with other third-party libraries. As normal, this example begins with a console application. The example uses the name First Boost. After you create the console application, following the steps you've used to create all of the other console applications in the book, perform these setup steps. 1. Choose Project Build options and select the Search Directories tab. You see the Project Build options dialog box. 2. Highlight First Boost in the left pane. Click Add. Code: Blocks displays the Add Directory dialog box shown in Figure 4-9. Figure 4-9, select the Boost library directory. That's what that looks like, at least when this book was published. 3. Click the ellipsis button to display the browser for folder dialog box and highlight the backslash code box backslash boost _155_0 folder on your hard drive. Click OK. The dialog box appears. Asking whether you want to maintain the entry as a relative path. Relative paths specify a location using the current location as the starting point. The alternative is an absolute path. which specifies the location based on the root directory of your hard drive. In most cases, after the patch, are less likely to get broken. 4. Click No. Code : blocks adds the folder you selected to the add directory dialog box. 5. Click OK. You see the folder for the boost library as shown in figure 4-10. Your path could vary from the one shown in the screenshot depending on the platform you use and how your copy of Boost was set up. Make sure you select the correct folder. Otherwise, the compiler won't be able to find the Boost library, or the headers won't compile correctly because they point to the wrong location on the hard drive. 6. Click OK. The application environment is ready to use with the Boost library. Now that you have the environment configured, you can begin working with Boost. Listing 4-1 shows 4-10, I think they meant, shows a date time example that displays the current time and then a modified date time. So this is what they're talking about. This is figure 4-10. Make sure you set the environment to use Boost. Okay. Listing 4- oh no, they did me listing 4-1. My apologies. This is 4-10 and this is 4-1, which is a listing. Okay, they were right. Listing 4-1, using Boost to create a simple date time example. Let's check it out. Hashtag include IOStream. Hashtag include Boost date time, POSIX time, HPP, using namespace standard, using namespace Boost, POSIX time, using namespace Boost Gregorian, int main, obtain the current date and time, p time now equals second clock local time, c out now inline. I show the code. This is code here. I show it so I don't have to say every little thing because it takes too long. Listing continued. Get the data and adjust it for tomorrow. Date, the date equals now. That date plus day is 1. Get the time and adjust for an hour from now. Time duration, the hour equals now time of day plus hours 1. Create a new date time and output it. P time, new date time, P time plus the date. P time, the date, the hour, C out, new date time, inline. Return 0. As with any other added capability, you must include the proper library files. Note that Boost headers use an .hpp extension, which makes it harder to confuse them with some other header type. To define what to include as the path to your library, simply look at the hierarchy in Windows Explorer. Locate the .hpp file you want to use and then copy that information from the address bar. Remember, Boost provides namespaces for each of the libraries. In this case, the p time and time duration classes appear in the Boost POSIX _ time namespace. Boost : Boost provides namespaces for each of the libraries. In this case, the p time and time _ duration classes appear in the Boost : POSIX _ time namespace, and the date class appears in the Boost : Gregorian namespace. If you find that your application won't compile, it usually means that you've missed a namespace and need to consider where each of the classes in your application comes from. The application code begins by creating a variable now that contains the current time, which you obtain using the second _ clock : local _ time pair method. It then displays the current time. The p10 class includes methods for interacting with every time element: years, months, days, hours, minutes, seconds, and so on. The example shows a few of the interactions you can perform. When you run this application, the second time you see is 1 day and 1 hour ahead of the current time. All right, here we go. This is the very last chapter of this book. This right here is C++ All-In-One For Dummies. This is 3rd edition. It's written by John Paul Miller and Jeff Cogswell. This is the 3rd edition. It has 6 books. And right now we are in book 6, and we're starting chapter 5, which is the very last chapter of this book. All right. So, I'm going to pause for a bit. Hello. I'm just waiting a bit before I continue reading time. If you want to put something in chat, you're welcome to. I gotta do a transition, so kind of want to just wait before I start book 6, chapter 5. Howdy. Hopefully your day is going well. Oh, or night. That was so cool, waking up and then getting breakfast ready and turning on YouTube and seeing that Lewis Dawkins, aka Dawko, was doing a charity live stream. Very cool. Reminds me of old times. Okay, transition time. Oh. Okay. We're going for a little walk. I'm all done with this part of things. Oh. Okay. Jeez. Was not expecting weather, but weather happened anyway. It's funny when that happens. All right, there's that step. Okay, let's go. All right. Okay. Alrighty. Okay, next. Here we go. Back inside. I'm officially done with my errands and chores. Yay. Okay. So, I don't see any reason why I can't finish this today. So we're going to try. We're going to try. We're going to try. That's what we're going to do. Alexa, turn on living room lights.
Okay.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to try. Because I would like to start coding again. Like real soon. Okay, I'm bringing this down. That's a ceiling fan. Okay, we're going to get back to reading time real soon. All right. Okay. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay. Okay, so we're about to finish. I think, I'm hoping, I really hope so. C++ on for Dummies 3rd edition. That's definitely the plan. So I'm definitely getting tired of this not being done. Okay. Whew, here we go. Let's get on this. So, drum roll. This is starting off C++ All-In-One For Dummies, Book 6, Chapter 5, which is the very last chapter. Here we go. Chapter 5, Boosting Up a Step. In this chapter, we'll learn about using regex to parse strings, using tokenizer to break strings into tokens, converting numbers to other data types, using for each to create improved loops, and using file system to access the operating system. The Boost library is vast. It's doubtful that a typical developer will ever use everything that Boost has to offer. Of course, before you can pick and choose what you want to use, you need to know it exists. Browsing through the help file can reveal classes that you need to add to your toolkit to produce good applications. This chapter helps by taking you to a whirlwind tour of the major Boost categories. Don't expect this chapter to discuss everything. Boost is simply too large for that. If you want to see a list of what Boost has to offer, check out all classes in alphabetical order. http://www.boost.org/doc/libs/1_55_0 categorize list http://www.boost.org/doc/libs/1_55_0 equals categorized. Yep, C++. Specifically, this is C++ All-In for Dummies, 3rd edition, written by John Paul Mueller and Jeff Cogswell. This has 6 books in one, and we are lucky us in book 6, chapter 5, which is the very last chapter of this book. Woo. Trading King says, yeah, hello, Becky. And also, why are you learning C++? Not necessarily learning C++, more so getting a chance to let it seep in. I learned, in theory, C++ when I was doing grad school, because I've used it a whole lot. When you're in the middle of taking classes, you don't necessarily have time to, understand why things are happening the way they're happening. You just have to make a thing that's working. So, one of the things that I decided to do after I graduated was get this book and read it and just marinate in it for a while. And so it's been almost a year that I've had this book, and I'm looking forward to finishing it. Maybe tonight, we'll see. Trading King said, why not C example? Oh, like I said, I've already coded in C++. I literally know how to use C++. So this isn't about learning C++. This is more so just taking some time that I never got to do while I was in grad school or getting into grad school and actually just read a nice book about something. Tip: in addition to reviewing the examples in this chapter and looking through the help file, it also pays to browse the Boost directory for examples. For example, if you look at the /code/blocks/boost, I guess I should put that. Trading King said, I learning C++ now. I go learning C#. That's awesome. I'm just saying, in general, I like all for dummies books because they are just really good at keeping things as simple as possible with the language or not trying to just sound smart. I really appreciate that. I'm a big fan of books that don't sound like they're made for the biggest brain people ever. http://msdn.microsoft.com/library/AA2887339.aspx. Before you begin working through the examples in this chapter, make sure you know how to configure your development environment to use Boost. The testing, the installation, and building your first book application using date time sections of book 6, chapter 4 tell how to configure code : blocks to use Boost. The building your first Boost application using date time section also provides you a simple example that gets you started working with Boost. Trading King says you need practice. No, I hear you. One thing I'm looking forward to doing when I finish reading this book is just do coding time, just random coding time. I have some things in mind. One thing is to work on my YouTube videos, especially the dancing, mainly the dancing to start, and figure out how to implement likely C++ or whatever is actually possible with the YouTube API, so I can have a new account that I could effectively pull from this account, do whatever changes I need, and then post to that account, all using software. That's one of the things I would like to do. Parsing strings using regex. Trading King says, is one website I learned C++. There is a very good website. That sounds great. Parsing strings using regex. Regular expressions are an important part of today's computing environment. You use them to prevent pattern matching, where the application finds a series of matching characters in a string. For example, if you want the user to enter values from 0 through 9 and nothing else, you can create a pattern that prevents the user from entering anything else. Using patterns in the form of regular expressions serves a number of important purposes. Ensures that your application receives precisely the right kind of input, enforces a particular data input format, such as the way you input a telephone number, reduce security risks. For example, a user can't input a script in place of the data you wanted. Sounds good. But yeah, I got to play around with C# a bit when I was doing my 2 video game development courses that I took. Warning: some developers make the mistake of thinking that a regular expression can prevent every sort of data input error. However, regular expressions are only one tool in an arsenal you must build against errant input. For example, a regular expression can't perform range checking. If you want values between 101 and 250, a regular expression will ensure that the user enters 3 digits. However, you must use range checking to prevent the users from entering a value of 100. Trading King says you can learning data analysis and backend and algorithms and data structures. They have challenges, competitive programming. Well, that's cool. What's the website? Define, I might have heard of it, but it's nice to know about websites. Either get reminders of them or new things. Defining the pattern. The regex library provides a number of methods for creating a pattern. For example, CodeChef. Okay, sounds cool. Defining the pattern. The regex's library provides a number of methods for creating a pattern. For example, if you want the user to input only lowercase letters, you can create a range by using the strict braces and insides in A to Z. The example in this chapter shows how to create a simple 3-digit numeric input. However, you can create a pattern for nearly any use. For example, a telephone number pattern might appear as 0 through 9, 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 where a telephone number of 555, 555, 5555 is acceptable, but a telephone number of 555, 555, 5555. Okay, because it has the parentheses. I see, yeah. Isn't. That's a good idea. The regex library reference appears at http .doc/www.boost.org/doc/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/lib This chapter doesn't provide you with a full explanation of all the patterns you can create. The best place to start discovering the basics of patterns is at http://www.boost.org/doc/doc/libs/doc/libs/regex/doc/syntax.html. It's important to note that older versions of Boost only supported the plural syntax. Newer versions support POSIX Basic and POSIX Extended syntax as well. Boost provides a wealth of pattern types. How you use the pattern is just as important as how you create the pattern. For example, you can use regex_match to obtain the precise match. However, if you want to only search for a value, you use regex_search. Instead, the usage reference appears at http colon //libs/libs/1_5/_libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/libs/lib Finding the pattern for a regular expression can prove time-consuming. However, once you create the pattern, you can use it every time you must check for a particular input pattern. The following sections describe how to work with the regex regular expressions library. Adding the regex library. Trading King asks why you read the URL, tilted smiley face, because it's there. Adding the regex library. Most of the Boost library works just fine by adding headers to your application code. However, a few components such as regex require a library. Before you can use a library, you must build it. The instructions for performing this task appear in the Building the Library section of Book 6, Chapter 4. To build the library, you must add it to your application. There are two techniques for adding the required headers and libraries to the application. The first technique is to add it to the compiler settings as you did for the testing installation section of Book 6, Chapter 4. The second technique is to add the settings to a specific project. You use the first technique when you work with the Boost for a large number of projects and require access to all libraries. The second technique is best when you use Boost only for specific projects and require access only to specific libraries. The following step shows how to perform the project-specific setup for any library, not just the regex library. 1. Use the project wizard to create a new project. Nothing has changed from the beginning of this book. Every application begins with a new project. 2. Choose project build options. Code : blocks displays the project build options dialog box. 3. Select a linker settings tab. You see a number of linker settings, including a link libraries list, which will be blank. 4. Click add. Code : blocks displays the add library dialog box shown in figure 5-1. Figure 5-1. Select the library you want to add. 5. Click the Browse button. The button sporting the ellipses. You see the Choose Library to Link dialog box. 6. Using the dialog box, navigate to the... No, what? Not again. Ah, this is what happened last time. They need an easier way. Like, it used to be easy to stop having green screen in case I accidentally put green screen on. But now I can't. And that's annoying. Okay. I literally cannot continue the way this is right now. This is the second time I managed to do this. Not today, thankfully, but still, I'm annoyed. Okay, I can't continue because I can't actually show the book. So I have to start the stream again. So I'm going to go and then I'll start a new stream like right away. And if you're still interested, come on back. But I literally cannot continue with the green screen and I don't have an easy way to stop the green screen. So, silly me. Bye.